This is the Art of Network Engineering podcast. In this podcast, we'll explore tools, technologies, and talented people. We aim to bring you information that will expand your skill sets and toolbox and share the stories of fellow network engineers.
Next week on Gordon Ramsay's Network Nightmares. All right, you've all been given the task to build a lab of a sample company's enterprise network. Let's have a look at the first one. Okay, so far I'm seeing SSH only access, very nice. Distribution to access is layer 2, nothing wrong with that. Wait, hang on. Your STP mode isn't rapid. You're using straight basic 802.1d STP. What is the matter with you? That being said, that's probably forgivable as long as you have your STP root bridge manually configured with priority, and of course you don't. You mean to tell me you just walk around all hunky-dory not caring who your root bridge is? Alright, I've had enough of this layer 2, it's driving me absolutely bonkers. Okay, up to the core now. Looks like we have layer 3 links connected directly from dist to core. Bit of OSPF going on there. Hang on. Physically point-to-point links, and you have /30s configured. What could you possibly need with those other two addresses? You think IPs grow on trees then? And you have the default OSPF network type on a point-to-point link? Of course you do. You want to have a DR-BDR election for two routers. Alright, that's it. I'm canceling the show. Will Gordon Ramsay really cancel the entire show 5 minutes into the second episode? Find out next week on Network Nightmares. In the meantime, stay tuned for the art of network engineering.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. That was beautiful. The best yet.
Gosh. Oh, that was fantastic. All right.
Tim, you nailed it.
I'm not sure how I should feel about that. That was a pretty different tempo from Bob Ross.
You nailed it.
Awesome.
You nailed it, man.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
And I should say that was meant to be over the top. I wasn't calling anybody out directly for any of those over the top best practices, but I will stand by my assumption that Gordon Ramsay does probably call them routers. I will stand by that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was waiting for an F off in there. So
Well, it's a family show, Dan.
So you could have done your
family
bleep
show.
magic, Dan. I should have.
exactly.
All right. I am AJ Murray at No Blinky Blinky. That was Tim Bertino at Tim Bertino. Tim, how you doing?
Hello, everyone. I am well. It's been a good week. AJ, hope you're doing well.
Doing very well. Thank you. Thank you. Andy at Andy Laptef at permitipandy.com. How are you doing, sir?
I've been off work for 3 days and I'm so chill.
I was just going to say you're looking very zen tonight.
Chill.
Zandy's here. Gotta love Zandy.
I'm so happy when I'm out there, AJ.
We're just going to go right into it, aren't we?
I think that's a sign.
Buckle
I think
up.
that's a
Here we
sign.
go.
Yeah. I'm good, man. How you doing, AJ?
I'm doing real well. Yeah, I'm settling into my new job. I'm having a great time. I'm loving it. I passed an exam today. I'm pretty excited about it. Got my AWS Cloud Practitioner locked in, so that's pretty exciting.
Nice.
Thank you. Thank
Ready
you.
for it.
Appreciate that. So yeah,
Congrats.
yeah, no, life's good. Life's good. Dan at Howdy Packet. Howdy, Dan.
Howdy.
How's life in Dan's world?
Oh, it's going good. Just working on this house, trying to get it sold, doing some more electrical, some of that stuff,
Ooh, you're daring. I got a guy for that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I'll do to my own house. Electrical is not one of them. And that's mostly because every time I try to, I uncover some sort of amateur hour that's happened previously in my home. And I don't want to touch amateur hour.
Yeah, that's because someone like me was doing that before.
Right. And that sound means it's time for the wins. Winning in our Discord channel this week is Tata the Automator. Absolutely amazing win. So on Tuesday, they passed the A+ Core 1. On Wednesday, they passed the A+ Core 2. On Thursday, they passed the N+. On Friday, they passed the Server Plus. They later got an email directly from the CompTIA director of the EMEA, and they were offered a ticket to attend the conference and speak about their experience taking all of these exams and passing them in just 4 short days. absolutely amazing job, and congratulations, Tata the Automator. Angel Inglis, I hope I got that right, starting a new role as a senior NOC analyst. Congratulations. Dan Jackson passed the CCNA, and our very own Tim Bertino passed his Encore exam and is one huge step closer to the CCNP Enterprise. Congratulations, Tim. Reno passed the Fortinet NSE 5. Congratulations to everybody winning on our Discord channel. If you want your win heard on the podcast, you can go to artofdeadeng.com/IAATJ for It's All About the Journey. Join and drop your win in the winning channel, and we'll read it here on the podcast. New Patreon Alicia Marquez is joining us. Thank you so much for your support of what we do here at the Art of Network Engineering podcast. And we thank all of our listeners for their support for what we do here. Thank you so much. Now back to the show. This week for tonight's episode, I am super excited does not cover the word that I feel right now. I can't really explain my feelings, but I'm very happy to welcome John Capobianco to the show. John, how are you?
I'm at the edge of my seat. I'm super excited too. We've been talking a long time about this, and I'm really excited to be here. This is really special to me. So thank you for the invitation, and I'm really, as a fan of your work collectively. I think what you've done for the community, the whole niche that you've carved out for yourselves, you should be very proud of yourselves, all of you guys. Really good, big win for just this show and this platform that you've provided people.
Wow. Thank you, John. I mean, that means a lot coming from you. We certainly appreciate all the work that you do. So thank you. Thank you very much for those kind of words about what we do here. Appreciate that. So I don't know where to start with you. You have so much cool stuff going on. I do want to start by saying congratulations. You recently won an award at DevNet Create. And so I just really want to say congratulations. Very well-deserved award for the DevNet Creator. So tell us a little bit about that if you could.
Yeah, that was really exciting for me. I got a random email from Eric Thiel, and I was really excited. Like, what's Eric? Why is Eric reaching out to me and to tell me that I had won this Creator Award? And it never entered my mind. I didn't know that I was even nominated, or like I knew there was a thing as a Creator Award, but I certainly never considered anything that I've been doing worthy of it. So I was floored. I'm still floored. One of the most exciting things to me was seeing my mom and dad sharing Cisco DevNet content on Facebook instead of Minion memes and stuff. Awesome. Right? So seeing like my parents sharing DevNet stuff on Facebook was super proud. I was super excited and really humbled by the whole experience. So yeah, thank you. And we can start wherever you want. My career, my interest in computers, networks, automation. I'm here for all of it, guys. I really am.
Who you are and what you do.
Awesome. Let's do that. So let's start with who you are. Well, we all know that. But what do you do right now? And then let's go back to how'd you get into this whole thing called IT?
Sure. So most of you know me from Merlin and my open source work, which is kind of like my superhero alter ego after my day job. But in my day job, I actually do run a sophisticated, complex network for the Canadian House of Commons, the Parliament of Canada in Ottawa. So this is, like the equivalent of the White House in the States. I run the network for the Canadian Parliament, and I joined them 8 years ago to, you might heard Cisco use some of the terminology, digitize the business. Well, we're not a business, but they wanted to build a next generation Cisco network. And I mean, all 40 buildings retrofitted, the data center, the edge, the perimeter, the firewalling. I could keep going. Wireless, voice over IP, services that they didn't have when I joined, and a digital framework and network, obviously with a focus on security and resilience and reliability. And it was something that it was a real challenge that that I was excited to do this. And it's a real privilege and honor for me to work for that organization. And I never, prior to that, I had only dreamed about not only the organization, but I'm about the technology and the computers and stuff, right? The scale and the complexity of this network is something that it really was a challenge for me. And I had to lean on studying and learning. And even when I got the job, I can remember in my first week, them talking about VRF design. And I remember coming home and telling my wife, I think I'm in over my head. Like, they're talking about a technology that I don't know anything about. I said, and I'm almost a CCNP. At that time, I don't know if I had it or not yet, but I had done a lot of Cisco studies. And I remember thinking, how come I've never heard of a VRF before? And this place is going to build their whole network using them, and I don't know anything about them. So I had this real splash of imposter syndrome, and was I up for this job? And maybe I'd made a mistake and I should go back. Does the old job, would they take me back? So that's what I do. And 5 years ago, probably about halfway in my journey with the Canadian Parliament, we had a particular change. Doesn't matter. Think of a change at scale. I think it was QoS or OSPF, some change that we needed to touch a lot of devices, ideally in the shortest amount of time to reduce the impact and the outage. And I wasn't satisfied with our approach of building this network was one thing, and then maintaining it and supporting it and operating it is a whole nother problem, right? And it was that second problem that I needed automation to step in and help me do things at scale with. It's not about the speed. It is and it isn't. Right. Like, that's a nice thing to have, is if it's fast, but I need it to work, right? That's really ultimately, I need it to bring up a healthy state that was defined by my intent. So I don't want to go too fast into the automation stuff, but when I got my start in IT, and this is, I hope people listening, I know you have a really big fan base and all different walks of life may be listening to this. I used to drive forklift and work on a heavy gauge aluminum machine, like in a factory for 12 hours a shift, steel toe boots and the hard hat and the whole deal. Nice. And after a few years of that, I was still a pretty young man at the time. I decided to go back to school and try to, build on my passion for computers. And I took a programming course at the local community college, and that changed everything. That changed the trajectory of my life for the better, absolutely for the better. And everything, the rest is sort of history. Now, my first few years in IT were hard. It was hard for me to break into the field. If you look at my about page there, you sort of see a bunch of small little stints with various organizations. But is that too much? That's a lot to unpack. But no, that's sort of my introduction.
I want to stop you with the forklift. So why did you go back to school? You're busting your butt in the forklifts, working really hard, long hours. It seems like there's a big pivot point in your life. Was there a particular thing that happened that you said, I need to go back to school?
Just the general malaise and depression and mental health. Yeah. I'm physically a big guy. I'm like 6'5" and I weigh about 275 pounds. And I was there because I was 6'5" and I weighed 275 pounds and I could haul and handle heavy aluminum. Now I didn't want to necessarily do that. Be a physical mule for the rest of my life, right? And I don't know why I went back to school, but I knew I could do more, and I knew that even though I was paid fairly well, like a good blue collar union job, and I could probably still be there working, pressing those buttons and pushing that machine and that metal around. I don't know how good my back or my knees would be, but I could have probably retired there. You know what I mean? After 30 years of it.
Yeah, I was curious if you got hurt. I had a physical job and got hurt, and that's part of what pushed me back to school. So I was just curious, selfishly.
Well, I was almost killed in an industrial accident there once, and that certainly opened my eyes whether or not I wanted to put my life on the line every day.
Wow.
Someone left a part in the machine, and anyway, I was like a few inches away from being killed. A piece of metal struck me, and had it hit me here instead of here, I don't know, right? Like this might not be here, right? So it woke me up, and I was like, so if you look, I actually was given an award from the college because, so I made a move with the company and the union and everybody was involved to get off of the 12-hour machine onto the 8-hour machine, because the 8-hour machine had 3 rotations. And I could give up my day shifts for night shifts. So that's what I did. I went to college from like 8 to 4. And then I went to the factory and worked till midnight for 2 weeks. And then the third week was midnight to 7 and then school till 4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow,
I did
that's
that. I went back to school and kept my job. I needed to get out of there. Yeah, Dan, it's tough, to manage both. I didn't party or drink. I had to work. Like I went to school and I worked. I didn't have a regular college experience.
Same.
John, I want to go back
anyway,
to
I'm not trying to be a downer here. It's a good thing, right? Like,
No, it's an important part of your story. I think it's important to bring that out.
Yeah, right.
I do want to go back to what you said when you started working for the Parliament, and you said that you ran into something new, VRF in this instance, that you had never seen before, and that you needed to learn it, and the imposter syndrome set in. How did you deal with that? How do you continue to deal with that?
That's a really good question. That particular instance, I went right to my route book from my CCNP box set. It was like, why did you let me down, official study guide, right? And I just combed it for VRFs. And then, so then it was like I hit where I actually went was, and I think it's an underutilized resource actually, was the free Cisco Live portal. So I actually went to Cisco Live's
that page.
on-demand stuff, and I found some very good VRF related stuff, decks and breakout sessions and, BRK 426 or whatever. I found a few of those that helped me. The other thing
we're big fans of that resource here.
I got my hands dirty, right? Yeah. I think it's underutilized. The live it's like being there at home on demand in your browser or whatever, right?
Can I throw?
Go
ahead, Dan.
Oh yeah, go ahead. So one thing I want to go back to is you said you started going back to school, and did you say you went for like a programming degree?
Yeah. So I actually went for a 3-year computer programmer analyst diploma. And we talked a little bit, Andy, before we started about automation and easy versus hard and the terminology and stuff. I actually went to school for 3 years. I wrote C++ and COBOL and Kix and JCL and Visual Basic and Java and JavaScript.
Blah, blah, blah.
I went to school for this stuff. It was 20 years ago. But it's like riding a bike, right? Where I know how to write a for loop. I know how to read JavaScript because I went to school for that. But here's the funny thing, Dan, my placement. So we did a co-op it was like the last year and a half, we did a co-op in the summer between. My co-op was with the Ontario Ministry of Health, but in a system support role. So I remember saying, I didn't graduate with any real programming experience in the field. And I have this year of frontline support and systems building and networking and server type stuff. The two didn't mesh at that time. There was no DevOps, right? I'm the OG DevOps. My placement in the field was building networks and computers, but I graduated as a programmer. So that's why if you look, my first certification that I wrote was my A+, because I had to start from the bottom of the systems world. I decided I had another break point. Do I want to pursue being a programmer and try to find a job as a junior developer somewhere, which was hard for me, or do I pursue this networking, Windows desktops, Windows servers type world, IT versus IS, we could say. And I liked networking more at that time. I don't know, I enjoyed it. So I pursued my A+ and my Network Plus and then a bunch more certifications. I really thought I was going to be, once I started with the insurance company and actually get my foot in with a company and they give me some responsibilities and it wasn't just a contract, I started in the help desk. I became the senior help desk person. Then I moved to the Windows team. Now here's the funny story. You're going to see a bunch of Windows exams and certs, like 4 years of my life. And I wanted to get it wasn't it wasn't MCSE anymore. In 2008, it was called ITP Enterprise Admin, EA still. But it was 7 Microsoft exams, including the Vista exam. And the day that I passed it, I brought the piece of paper in to my director at the time, really excited. I've got news. And they beat me to the punch. They said, no, we've got news. We've got to meet. Can you come into my office this afternoon? No problem. I have something I want to share you. And I was going to show off this enterprise admin designation. And he's like, we're moving you to the network team. I said, what are you talking about? I said, I just passed my enterprise admin. You know what he did? He pulled out my Network Plus and held it up. He said, yeah, but you've got your Network Plus. I said, this was 7 exams. This is you can't get any better with a Microsoft exam than this. It's I'm like, this is hard stuff. And he's like, no, but you've got this CompTIA Network Plus. We're going to put you on the networking team. And I was like, that was my first corporate world. They're not really connected with maybe certifications and what means what, but there was for them, absolute parity between my Network Plus and my Microsoft certified enterprise administrator. There was no difference to them. They're like, we're putting you on the network team. Right?
Yeah.
Hey, John.
Yeah, I was curious how
so then I said,
went
so
from,
they actually had a good news. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I was curious when you said that you went to school for programming. I was like, well, so how did you get into networking? But I think I've seen where it's going.
And that's the question I want to ask you, John. From a coding background, was it easier learning networking than learning coding? Because I'm a networking guy trying to learn coding, and man, it's a mountain.
Ooh. So my programming course, there was one single networking module. And so I don't the college certainly believed that all you needed was a semester of networking to have subnetting, ping, right? Basic stuff, not an NA, not a CCNA level, not even a Network Plus level, a semester of college level networking. I think that networking is a little more challenging because there's layer 1 and physical things in the way. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but a for loop is going to run forever unless it's interrupted. A network can be disrupted a lot easier than a application, in my opinion. But Dan, how I got into networking, to back up this, we're moving you to the network speech that they were giving me. They actually, can I mention a training provider? I don't know. I don't want to.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, no?
Yeah.
So anyway, so I just didn't want to, they sent me on the Global Knowledge CCNA boot camp, which at that time in 2010, I want to say, was a 60-hour, 5-day, so 5 12-hour days, plus probably 2 hours of homework a day, boot camp for the NA. I did that because they wanted to give me a fighting chance of putting me on the network team. I also actually had the keys. So I had an admin login. I had real network gear to sign into and play with. So I got my NA pretty quickly after the boot camp. And then from there, I never wanted to let my NA expire. It was so hard. And I still have this fear in the back of my mind. if I let any of these things slip, I've got to write that NA again, and I do not want to do that. I don't know about you guys, but I still, NA was harder than T-shoot, route, switch, design professional, data center professional. I'm telling you, that NA exam I wrote, the first one. So anybody listening out here, if you're struggling with it, the struggle is real, okay? That's a real struggle to get the CCNA. That was a tough exam. Still maintained today, to me, one of the hardest I've ever passed. And then I was like, I went in there kind of like, I've passed the enterprise admin for Microsoft. I mean, how hard could this? I was like, I can't click back. What do you mean I can't click the back button? What kind of exam is this? Right? The Microsoft, I can do whatever I want. They're like, you log into the Microsoft exam and they're like, don't run regex or regedit. Okay, I won't run regedit. And don't reboot the server sandbox. Okay, I can live with that. But there's no you can't click next. My answers are locked in. Are you serious? It took me 6 minutes of exam time to process the fact that I couldn't go back to question 1. I just sat there dumbfounded. That was my answer? I can't change that?
So John, I just want to, I've had the opposite experience, right? Because my first certain exams were Cisco, and I was used to the fact that I couldn't go back. And then I took another OEM's exams, and I'm like, you can go back? You can review questions before you submit the exam? What is this wizard stuff? This is crazy.
That's hilarious. Cisco's hardcore, man.
Well, then you write something like the ITIL where you can even phone a friend.
I think I'm taking the wrong test. What the hell?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So, so that's sort of my journey in a nutshell. On certifications, I don't want anyone to get don't be overwhelmed by my list. I'm an older man now. I've been doing this a long time, and I was telling the guys earlier, I try to write at least one exam a year, and that's been a personal goal, almost like a New Year's resolution of mine. I sort of forecast my year ahead, say, okay, I'm going to try this one in May and this one in November. And if I fail in May, then I'll try it again in November. So I've accumulated quite a few certs and exams.
Oh my God, I'm looking at them
failed
now. Wow.
some for sure. I failed one 3 times, I think, So my CCNA data center exam 2 of 2, the second one killed me. SANS and the storage area network stack and FCOE, and it was a killer. It really killed me, that exam. Twice it killed me. I think one of them, it even spoiled my Cisco Live. I took it as my free exam, and I spent the week kind of pouting in the bar, can't believe I failed that twice. So it happens to, and I don't say I'm the best of us, but it happens to the best of us where you get knocked down, you fail it, maybe you weren't ready. And that's, boils down to swallowing that pill of, I just wasn't ready for the exam, I didn't fail. I just wasn't ready for it, this attempt,
Mm-hmm.
So when you take the 2 exams a year, how do you pick your exams? Is it because of stuff you're working on, or do you just see that as relevant skills that you want to acquire, that maybe it's something you haven't been exposed to yet that you want to be exposed to? How do you make that selection?
I sort of have a projection. For me, I used to, anyway, it's almost like World of Warcraft. If I get these 3 achievements, then I get this meta achievement and I get a mount. So sometimes I used to pick and choose based on what designation it would get me, right? Other times it was pragmatic. So I get a lot of, you got to NP on route switch, and you did DP route switch. Why haven't you taken your IE? How come you haven't done the lab or whatever? That at that point in time, our enterprise, my day job, my Clark Kent role, we just got a brand new Nexus data center. And I was like, if I'm going to build and support and maintain and automate this thing, I really have to know Nexus. So I made a choice to, and when I do these things, I always try to start with associate, even if maybe I could have skipped to professional or whatever. I like to do exams and read books. It's just something I enjoy. And it's weird. I don't enjoy the exam or failing, but I enjoy knowledge seeking, let's say, right? So data center was like, I'm going to get NA and then NP in data center. And then that would give me NP data center, and DP. And then maybe I'll look at IE. And then you know what happens? DevNet comes along and it's like, put the IE back on hold. I got to do a DevNet. I need that associate, right? And speaking of exams, so I don't know, maybe do you guys have like a favorite? It used to be T-Shoot for me, where you got the tickets and you actually had to do tickets in the exam. Love that exam. Top favorite exam of all time. And then I did associate for DevNet. Just fantastic. You actually have to fill in API calls and like, I'm not memorizing part numbers or what's the root bridge value for your CCNA? Do you remember 32,600? And no, it's like, you got to make a request, or how does curl work, or the bash shell, or I don't know. It was like, it was something I could touch and feel. I'm answering real questions. I'm not being tested on my memory, right?
Right.
I don't know. Have you guys, I don't know. I should know. DevNet Associates, have you guys taken a shot at it? Yeah.
I haven't, no.
Yeah. I've passed that. I did it last December, and I agree with you. You know, a lot of the past exams that I've taken before they revamped the entire program were very much the Jeopardy style knowledge memorization kind of questions. But now the newer exams, I've taken the Encore, I've taken the Design Specialist exam, and I've taken the DevNet Associate, and they're very much like knowledge-based questions. You know, like when I was taking the NP track, NP route switch, I've been in IT for 15 years. I've done networking for a lot of that. I felt completely lost learning some of that stuff, but now I go and do Encore, and I brought that 15 years of experience with me, and I felt like it helped, right? Like I managed wireless networks for a good portion of that time. I had done virtualization for a good portion of that time. And so it felt like that was, I don't know, almost validated that having that experience actually helped me get a professional level certification, whereas it did absolutely nothing for me, you know, studying for and attempting the previous one. So I think they've done a really great job with these new exams.
So John, I want to pivot here for a second. I'm looking through all of the things you've done in your illustrious career up to this point, and I see something here that says professor, college professor. Do you want to go into that at all?
So I hate idle time and free hands, and I went to see Seinfeld with my wife in Kingston, and right behind me, literally right behind me in the seating, was my C++ professor / program coordinator at the college where I went back to school. And she had heard about some of the work. You know, Kingston's a small town, so she heard Empire's network and everything was really, you know, doing well under my work. And I said I had a particularly bad day or something. I don't know, some change went wrong, and I kind of said, like, do you need a professor out there? Like, how's, you know, what's your? She's like, well, you could come in the fall and start teaching the network program if you'd like. That was my interview. I didn't interview with the human resources department.
Wow. Didn't
meet with a single other person from the college. She's like, right on the spot, if you want to develop the course. And I said, so here's, she said, we need two. We have two openings, and you'd be the professor for both, the Windows Active Directory course and the networking course. And so I agreed, and I said, I just finished my CCNA. I just finished my Microsoft Enterprise Admin. Can I develop my own material for these courses, or do I have to follow, you know, I didn't want to take the previous instructor and just go through the motions. I wanted to make the material and then deliver the material. So that's what we did. And I tailored it to CCNA. Now, it's not a network academy, so I didn't have access to packet tracers or different things like that. But we had some fun. I brought some gear in from the lab that the company let me bring in to get them onto the CLI and things of that nature. And then the Windows one was, group policies and Active Directory basics and things of that nature. It's one of the most rewarding jobs. I don't consider it a job. It was like a privilege and an honor to be in front of adult age people paying to learn and to become like what I did, right? There's people in there trying to go back to school to change their life. There's kids right out of high school. There's retired military people that are trying to start a second career, a wide variety of people. And some of them, like one guy, he's gone on to be a very important, he makes more money than me now. Can you believe it? He learned everything he knows from me, and now he's out there making more money for some private company. But some of them have gone on to really successful careers, and that really is meaningful to me. And here's a funny story. So I came in my second year, I was going to prepare my lab, and I got to the end of the hallway where my lab was, and the whole wall was gone. No drywall, just gone. And a construction crew there framing a new wall. And I said, "What?" I said, "This is my lab down here. What's going on?" And the guy said, "Well, the teachers in this room have been complaining about some loud professor in this room. So the college is putting soundproofing in between your lab and the shared classroom next door." And I said, you're kidding me. She says, "No, we get complaints all the time that they can't teach in there because you're laughing and sharing memes and everybody's having a good old time. And like, are you teaching them anything?" And I was like, "That's just the way, that's how it's done. Like, I'm having fun." And I'd have like, the winter is coming meme, and I'd have like, exams are coming, and I'd use memes, and we had a blast. I love that job. And, you kind of get to know the job twice. Like, are you really good enough to explain layer 2 to a room full of people? What a subnet mask is. It really sharpened my skills. And then you've got these hotshot kids that, like, I'm still a teacher, and they're still going to try to make me look like a fool in front of the room, right? "Oh, you got that notation's wrong. That's in the wrong broadcast domain." Okay, like, I'm not using subnet calculator right now. I'm trying to do it in my head on the chalkboard, right? So I love being a professor. Yeah.
Hey, John, you said you built a lab for the class, right? Why did you use physical gear and not virtual or emulator?
I didn't. So I was new, and I didn't really know how to interface with the college's IT. Like, not to be blunt, but I didn't know how to best tell the college I needed a chunk of compute and I needed some VMs, and I sort of worked on the local desktop. So for the domain stuff, Andy, we use VMware and VM Workstation to set up like domain stuff, but the networking stuff, it was hard. I tried. So here's something you may not know. To get a college to be Network Academy, you have to have 2 faculty that have at least CCNA. And I couldn't get, for the life of me, these other professors to go get their CCNA so that I could bring Network Academy in, so that I could use Packet Tracer and other like legitimate tools. I wasn't about to go to YouTube or, the torrents and like I wanted it to be legitimate, right? So I didn't do any of that stuff. But I really wish the college had maybe forced one of the other professors to get their CCNA, but that never materialized. So taking the job at the college or at the Parliament in Ottawa, that was actually the hardest decision for me to make, that I would have to stop being a professor at the college. And
you couldn't do both.
It's another one of these. It was the geography and me driving back to Kingston a couple times a week. It just wouldn't work out.
Gotcha.
And also the professing, being a teacher or whatever, it was one of my many money losing moves. like it actually cost me money because I gave up my on-call and my overtime, and I had a balancing act with my day job at the insurance company. So to make up those hours that I was away at the college, I gave up my on-call and my overtime. I didn't stop working on-call and overtime. I just stopped getting paid for it. so that I could go work the second job at the college. It's hard to work 2 day jobs. It's hard to say like, okay, I'm off to the college for a couple hours to your normal manager, right? So I had to give up something, and it was my on-call and my overtime. So teaching actually, I probably made like $3 an hour or something in the end. But, not everything I do is for money. I've lost money on the book, if you can believe it, after all this time. Still haven't broken even there. So like, I don't really worry about that stuff though when I'm making content or creating it. I didn't certainly do it to become financially, wealthy or rich or anything. I wrote the book because I thought there was a place for one and that the industry needed one. And Andy, I was where you were. How do I start with this automation? Why is it so hard? Have you been to docs.ansible.com and tried to start from scratch? Like, I wish, good luck, right? What's a YAML file? What are they talking about? So I wrote the book after a year of this, and the legend is true. My first Ansible playbook was written in Notepad, and I used TFTP to send it to a CentOS box, and I did that back and forth until it ran properly, because I was a network engineer and I knew how to use TFTP and Notepad++.
Yep.
Didn't know a thing about VS Code. Didn't know a thing about Git, GitHub, Azure DevOps. Even Ansible was brand new to me. So I wrote the book out of frustration with some of the books I had read. Even Ansible, big Ansible on the cover of the book, they just didn't do it for me because they didn't tell you that you needed an IDE and you needed to use Git. And there's a lot more to this than 6 lines of YAML and you say Ansible playbook Andy's YAML. There's more to it, right? So do you guys want to start talking about automation? Like, you want to get into the cool stuff or what?
Yeah. Let's make me mad.
All right.
Yeah. So we can swing over to that.
Here's what was my mistake. I jumped right into a production grade change that I thought I just need to swap out what the humans are doing for tasks in an Ansible playbook. And it was never that simple or easy to begin with. And then what I was trying to do was affect change. And I think most of us jump to, it's not valuable unless it's complex, or it's not valuable unless I'm changing something, or network automation equals change management. And you'll get there, but I disagree with that being, even pushing VLAN 10 blue to a switch with Ansible. I wouldn't recommend that. I really wouldn't. I like to gather state, capture stuff, because it's safe. I'm just running a show command. It's not going to push anything. I'm not going to get it wrong. It's not going to leave a bad taste in my mouth, because all I'm doing is running show version in a framework, Ansible or Python, and I'm getting structured data back. Now, that in itself is a lot to unpack, Andy. Just how do we connect? I know how to use PuTTY. I know I need to use SSH. I know it's port 22. I know it's an IP address. I know I have credentials I have to handle. That in itself is tricky. I don't want my password in the naked. I don't want clear text passwords in my Git repo. Now I have to look at Ansible Vault or some vaulting technology. It's not easy, Andy. So don't be so hard on yourself. Just the act of connecting and securing your credentials is difficult, okay? Anything you want to add, or do you have a question? You know what I mean? Is that okay?
No, thank you. Well, thank you for saying that, because I feel that the automation evangelists in networking paint it with this. Easy is probably the wrong term, but it just, to me, from my seat, it seems so easy to everybody. And, like you said, all you got to do is write a YAML and just call it, and it's easy. And I'm glad that you're calling out that it's not, because it makes me feel inept when it's not easy for me. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? So.
Hey, A1 fans, AJ here to remind you about NordVPN.com. NordVPN will help secure you wherever you go. I use NordVPN on all of my personal devices. Whenever I'm out and about, I just go into the NordVPN app, hit Quick Connect, and away I go. Nice and secure. Don't have to worry about prying eyes, anybody looking at my connection. If I choose to go work from a coffee shop locally, or even while I'm traveling, if I bring my personal devices, I will use NordVPN to help keep things safe and secure. I'm using NordVPN right now, and there's no degradation in my signal. Everything looks good when you guys watch us on the live streams. So I can't say enough good things about NordVPN. They have some great additional services included with their VPN product. They'll scour the dark web for your credentials and see if they've been involved in any sort of hacks or anything. And then if they have, they'll let you know, and you can go change your passwords and do whatever you need to do to help keep yourself safe and secure. They also have a mode that will block any websites or ads known to possess malware, and they just have general ad blocking anyway, because who wants ads? As I record an ad. Anyway, if you want NordVPN, and you do, go to nordvpn.com/TAONE for the art of network engineering, and you can get a really great deal, 73% off 2 years plus 4 months free. So again, that's 73% off 2 years plus 4 months free of NordVPN. If you forget that URL, just go to nordvpn.com. At checkout, you can use the promo code TAONE for the art of network engineering. And we appreciate your support as well as NordVPN support of the Art of Network Engineering podcast. Now back to the show.
So, John, let me ask something real quick. On when you first started. Oh, yeah, sorry. So when you first started, writing these your scripts and stuff like that, you said that you were doing like show commands and stuff. Is that like what you broke your teeth or cut your teeth on whenever you started down this path, like just doing show commands and just pulling your structured data, or was there a project that you were trying to accomplish? Because I think for me, one of my struggles when I was getting into I'm not big into automation just yet, but my little bit that I am into it, it was trying to find something that makes sense, right? Like not just doing something just to do it, right? Like something that would accomplish something at the end of it.
Right. So there's a couple things. I'll work backwards. I myself, and this is just me, and I'm not trying to, say anything bad about this approach. I can't learn from the flip a coin 10 times Python example, or make a deck of cards, or abstract, like, here's how you do it. And okay, so I make this coin flip. How's that going to help me automate a network? It doesn't, those dots don't directly connect for me. It was doing something. Now, where I started, and again, this was a big mistake, was a little overconfidence, a little too much, maybe a testosterone in the room. But we were going to take a YAML file and then a Jinja template and generate an intended state. Okay. Put that into boot flash and then trigger a config replace.
Okay.
So that was the first actual thing I did with Ansible, was to distribute a target config into boot flash and then trigger the CLI command config replace from that target we just put on there that was automatically generated from a template and a data model. Worked out very well. Gotcha. I wasn't actually using like the Ansible iOS config module. I was using the iOS command module that let me issue the config replace command. Now, config replace is very close to some people listening or someone on the call here. You may have done a config replace where it statefully puts in a totality running config into running memory. It's almost like a copy, start, run, but without the disruptive nature of that broken copy, start. It's a config replace, right? So that was my first thing that I did with Ansible. And then I pulled way back and said, like, I don't understand this tool enough. We got lucky and it worked. It took like 6 weeks to develop this thing. It was a one-time throwaway task. So not really a great candidate even for automation. 6 weeks to write one playbook that we're never going to use again, right? Like just not really connecting this whole approach, right? So, but here's where I got lucky. My career is a a series of lucky breaks that my teacher was right behind me, right at Seinfeld. I reached out. I saw Simmings post from the PyATS team. He had a blog post, and I happened to look into him, and it said he was in Ottawa. So right away, I reached out to my Cisco contacts at the house and said, do you have any idea who, Simming and JB, there's a whole team in the Ottawa region that developed this PyATS tool. They did a demo for me and my team in the Cisco office. We're like a few blocks apart. So we all walked over there and had Timbits and coffee and watched the PyATS demo. And that was like a big eye opener to me. And sort of, so I'm rambling a bit here, but I had Ansible, okay? And then around Ansible, you can tap into the Genie framework, and Genie lets you take show IP interface brief, show version, show whatever you want, and it gives you structured JSON back. Now that, what I just described, is really the key to everything else you guys have seen me do. Everything else is the fact that I have JSON and it's structured data. So it was an easier step for me to move to Python and the PyATS framework. So there's the parsers, and then they actually have a framework. And so then my job became moving all of my Ansible playbooks into these Python Py files. Same tasks, let's say, right? Same series of things I want to accomplish, but now I'm doing them Pythonically without YAML files in the YAML framework. Andy, I know I'm rambling on and I'm going very deep here. I'm sorry, but that's sort of great. What's led me to where I'm at now.
Why did you go to Python?
Okay. The other thing, I get that a lot. I have this information gathering that I've talked about. Go get the state of the network. Go run a bunch of show commands and then create artifacts from them. Everything from a CSV file to a mind map. There's different ways to present that data that we get. It was slow. Like, I have hundreds of devices. It doesn't do me any good to have the network state from 7 hours ago. like I really can't use that. I might as well not even run it if I'm not going to get the output. Like, it's not a COBOL batch job, right? I don't want this in 12 hours. I want it now. So that was a big driver, was performance. The other driver was Ansible was very slow for me. Yes, absolutely.
I've heard that.
And it's under the hood stuff, Andy. It uses like Paramiko, whereas PyATS or Python. So here's one thing. I don't want to mix up, or people listening, Python, capital P, object-oriented programming language, and the particular framework that I've chosen, PyATS. There are many. You can use Nornir. You can use Scraply. You can use others. The point is, these things, remember I talked about you have to connect, and that involves an SSH and an IP and credentials, and these tools let you deal with that. Ansible lets you deal with it in a hosts file, whereas other tools like PyATS use what they call a testbed file. I don't even use a testbed file anymore. I generate it automatically through Python. But once you've connected, then these parsers can scrape that screen show whatever command and give you back something that looks like data you would get from an API. Now, I don't want to suggest that Ansible is a bad tool, and I don't want to suggest people shouldn't use Ansible or start with Ansible, but I have to be honest, right? If someone were to ask me, I have X amount of time in a week to learn something. Should I invest that time in Ansible or should I invest that time in Python? I mean, I have to be honest and say Python, right? And it's for a variety of reasons. How many jobs do you think there are for people that know Python? Broadly speaking, compared to I know Ansible. It's a totally different, right? It's a bigger market. There's more things you can do with it. It's a full language, right? But I'm not going to judge someone if they want to use Ansible. Like, I really don't want this to be a gatekeeping type thing or me passing judgment. I'm happy that people either is better than none, right? Yeah. I think we can all agree that both are better than hop by hop, device by device manual operation. So, and I still think my book is a great place to start, Andy. I really do. Just, and it's not quite pseudo code, but like, just do it in human language. Honestly, like that's how I solve the problems is just, okay, I have to connect to a device or many devices. Let's start with one. I need to, need the IP. I need credentials. I need SSH. What do I want to do once I've connected? Well, I'd like to show version. Okay. And then I'd like to make a CSV file from that, or an HTML page, or I don't know, just put it on my screen, right? Just write them down in human ideas. And then you literally go Stack Overflow article by article, buddy. You just Google the hell out of it and find that answer that says, oh, to do a for loop in Python, it's for X in Y : You'll find it, right? But the idea is to be curious and try to take a simple, something relevant. Like I want to, well, hell, why not make a VLAN on that device? You're going to quickly accelerate once, like it only doesn't work until it works. Like, I know that sounds simple, but like it only fails 5-6 times. It works. I got the right code. And now I can move on to the next problem. And I know how to do that now, right? So I think you should be really like, it's an opportunity more than anything, right? But we were asking earlier, like, is it the tools themselves, Andy, that maybe you just haven't found the right mix of tools? Or is it that you're just stumbling to get started with some project of some kind?
I think it's time. Like we were talking before the show about how much time you have, during your work week to, like you said, Google Fridays or something. Like, I haven't been able to find the time to do all this digging that you're saying. What I have heard from a lot of different people, Python over Ansible for all the reasons you espoused, and the structured data is a big thing. I've been working for 6 weeks now to try to structure a Excel CSV file of data, to structured data that I can actually do something with. So I'm learning and I'm chipping away and I'm getting there. But yeah, it seems like a lot of time, that you really have to invest to get this, at least for me. And I just haven't been able to find that during my work week.
Well, and I want to add on to that, Andy, in
go ahead.
The getting started. So from a network standpoint, from a system standpoint, we tend to give the advice of start with this material, go after this certification. Like the classic network thing is, you want to get into networking, read some Network Plus books, get into the CCNA prep, that kind of thing. What's your advice for that around automation and Python? What is it? Is it really just come up with a use case, do some Googling, the Stack Overflow thing, or is there really a day zero to day one advice that you can give people that are really just trying to start out?
John's book.
Yeah, John's book.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I actually wouldn't. I hate taking people's money for that book now. It's like technology moves so fast, and the book feels so dated, and Ansible itself has changed so much. And I'll come back to the book. We'll talk about the book in a second. But to answer your question, Tim, there's 2 tracks, I think, depending on your mindset. If you're I like to find a web link and click and do labs and really just follow along. Cisco DevNet Start Now. If anyone just Googles Cisco Start Now, Dwan Lightfoot's program, the new DevNet Start Now program, there's literally like a 4-module getting started with APIs guide that will get you from zero to started pretty quickly. What I like about APIs and structured data, and I'll throw some sites or some ideas out to you guys. And I know this is going to go against me saying, don't just write a flip a coin app, but how you can have some fun with it. Or I don't know if anyone on the call has children of any age, but if you want to get or anyone listening, if you want to get your children involved in Python, there is a Pokemon API. I'm not kidding you. There is a Star Wars API. There's a World of Warcraft API. There's a Deck of Cards API. There's an International Space Station API. If you want to know how many humans are in space, if you want to get your children excited, say how many people are in space right now, kids? Let's go find out Pythonically. Honestly, you go into Postman, and this is the biggest hidden feature on the whole world that people just don't know about. In Postman, there's a reveal code button in Postman. So if you can make that get API against Luke Skywalker on the Star Wars API, you can click the reveal code button and hit the drop down and pick Python. It will literally say import requests, request.get, swapi.com/Luke Skywalker or whatever. You take it out of Postman, you make a .py file and you run it, and it will work. And you'll have the JSON in Python without even knowing Python. It's copy and paste from Postman into Python. If anyone's listening, do it right now. It's just incredible. So that to me is the tactile experience of trying it and doing it. Now, I still do this, guys. I find some new API. I don't just start writing code. Like, I really don't. I appreciate everybody's, belief in me, but, I still go to Postman and do the API call and find the JSON and struggle with this and this error and that error. On the book, before I forget, if you've been COVID displaced from your job, if you're a student, if you're in the developing world, if you simply can't afford it, please contact me and I will send you a PDF of the book. I really will. Just reach out to me. It may take me some time to get to if I get 6,000 requests for the book from this podcast, but I'll do my best to get you a copy of the book. Honestly, I don't want finances to be the barrier. I didn't write it to make money. I write it so that you could read it, right? And if you need me to send you a copy to read it, I will happily do that.
John, that's incredible. I think that's a very generous thing to do with what you've done here. And I want to take some time to talk about your book. You were kind enough to send us 5 copies of your book. So I have those here. And shortly after your episode airs, we will go to Twitter and we will give these books away to some lucky listeners and social media followers. So I definitely want to thank you for that. And, for one, writing the book and doing what you do and then putting it in our hands so we can give it away to folks that follow and listen to us. So thank you very much for that. And we will also put a link to your book where you can get it in the show notes. So that way, if anybody wants to, they can come in and buy it.
Well, I appreciate that. And I was telling you guys before we started, those books were supposed to go to Dragons on Canadian Dragon's Den, which is the Canadian version of Shark Tank. But the world wasn't quite ready for a talking computer network that phoned you yet. I don't know. Maybe I'll talk to my handlers. I think they sent me too far back in time. I think maybe 30 years ahead. I think the world will be ready for me.
I'm ready, John.
But I want to say something else. I put out a ton of clips and content, and I don't do it to show off. I really hope that's not how it comes across. I certainly don't do it to make it look easy. Maybe look easy and inspire someone to try it kind of way. I just want people to know that this whole Merlin thing and the open source thing and the tool, it's a collection of ideas and a collection of, Pythonic ways of dealing with network state information. I'm certainly having fun. And I find these things like, maybe it's a little far out there, but why can't our network phone us? Right? Like why doesn't this just ring if I lose a BGP neighbor that's important to me? I really think that could, that would be maybe not a phone call with a human voice, but an instant message, a Discord message with a adaptive card, all kinds of neat stuff, right? So if anybody wants to get involved with the code or clone the repo or make a pull request or have me give you a personal tour of the code, we can use a live share in VS Code, and I'd be happy to connect. I really would. I'd like to see someone take it and make it better. Someone who actually knows how to write Python. and clone it and okay, he was on it. It wasn't bad, but a real Python developer, what they could do with it, right? So,
well, John, let's dive into that a little bit. Let's back up for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, maybe hasn't watched you. This might be someone's first introduction to you and the stuff that you work on. So what is Merlin, and what are you doing with that?
Well, that's great. So it actually is an evolution of that Ansible playbooks I was talking about, Go Show version. And here's where it started. And this is going to sound familiar to a lot of people. And I'm glad we're going to talk about this. I think that more and more stakeholders are interested in network state information. I think it's become so vital to every organization, every vertical, every horizontal, public, private, government, doesn't matter, has a network that's vital to their operations. That could be money making, it could be serving the public, right? But the network is the key to all of these solutions. And early in my career, we purchased 6509s. Okay. And the finance person said, I'd like an inventory from the 6500s we just purchased. Do you know what I brought them? Junior network engineer that didn't know any better. I brought them a printout to show inventory. And this finance person looked at it and almost threw it back in my face. And you know what they said? So we deal with spreadsheets around here, John, okay? Come back to me when you have that in Excel. And I was like, I went with my tail tucked between my legs. And I explained to my senior network guy, who laughed his ass off at me. You didn't know to finance with a show output, did you? I said, yeah, look, it's right here. So she basically crumpled it up and threw it back in my face. So it's always stuck with me that this 6500 can do VRFs, MPLS tags, BGP, ISISO, but I can't get a spreadsheet version of the data on it. That's up to me, right? I can't just run show whatever spreadsheet and give me an Excel file, right? That still baffles me to this day. So anyway, that's the genesis of this whole thing. Was now that I have a parser and I have structured data, I can make that business ready, as I call them, business ready documents from network state. Now, here's a real world example. I deal with publicly funded things, right? Like I have to account for every part, and SFPs are getting expensive if you've bought a 40 gig GBIC for a 7K, right? We have to track all this stuff. What do you do? The big bang Walmart with the gun scanning barcodes and you go part by part? No, you run some show commands and you parse the data. You stick it into a spreadsheet and you give it to the business and say, there's every part down to the SFP, every serial number. And then you can connect it with, say, the contract to API from Cisco SmartNet. So now I'm feeding those part numbers to a contract database in the cloud, and it tells me whether or not it's under contract and what my SLA is, right? It's like Tony Stark in Iron Man, and he just does this stuff with his hands and he's whipping around. Well, we can take that JSON and send it to northbound APIs, send it into SharePoint Online, send it to a GitHub repo, all kinds of different things, right? So that's where Merlin started and has continued to evolve. Most recently, and let me do a sidetrack here, there was a product from Cisco called Johan by Florian Paschinger, and it's an open source utility. And there's actually a 4 or 5 part blog series that goes along with this tool that you should read. And it is what actually sparked in my interest in Django. Now, Django is a Python framework, but what it does is it's like batteries included, guys. So it has a front end in like an Apache 2 web templating engine and a back end in a Postgres or MySQL database. So like we come from this world of 3-tier apps, right? We can kind of relate the web app database tiers. Django really lines up with that nicely, where I have my controller, so they call it a model view controller. You'll remember this from page 31 in the official study guide for DevNet Associate. They talk all about this model view controller business. But it lets us model our data from the network. So like if you look up the Genie parser, it has a JSON schema that relates one-to-one to a model to a database table. So now I'm not just running Ansible or Python and making a bunch of files on a UNC path, right? Like hundreds of files. I'm storing them in a SQL database, and then I can, with the views, they call them views, present URLs to the users. Now, here's something else I found along the journey. If you're Googling things or have your browser open, visit datatables.net. Now, what data tables are, if you've ever made an HTML table, they're nice, but they're static, right? They're just a static table on a page. If you plug data tables in, which is free, open source, a little bit of JavaScript that you don't have to write, you just import it. A little bit of style sheeting, you just import it. Well, now that HTML table is paginated, is searchable, is sortable. I can drag columns around. It even comes with buttons that let me print the table or view it in a PDF. So now I've really actually achieved this sort of business-ready documents by just visiting Merlin/show version, and there's a data table of the show version output, right?
Okay. So did you
Pretty cool
go
stuff,
back to them
So
with that?
I know it's.
That's incredible.
I'm sorry?
So did you go back to them with that, or was this years down the road after your incident with the with that department?
I wish I could go back to them with that. That was at my old company. No, I don't.
I got you.
I would love to. I would love to go back there and show them. Here's that Excel report you asked for 15 years ago. Yeah, no, I didn't get a chance to do that. But you know what I did do to get back at that department? I was installing the wireless access points in that finance department, and that same person came by and asked me if that meant they could finally use wireless mice. And I said, yeah, your whole department, that's why we're putting them in, is so that you can all use wireless mice in here. So that was my way of getting back at that finance person.
John, I hate to say it. This has been a fantastically fun hour. Unfortunately, we are going to have to wrap it up. Some of the co-hosts here have other things, the maintenance windows and stuff to move on to, and I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to wrap up here. So I want to start by saying thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. I will invite you back for another episode right now before we finish this one, because I feel like we have so much more left to talk about. Thank you so much for the copies of your book that we're going to give away. So if you're listening to the podcast, stay tuned for that and follow us on Twitter. We'll post more about these books in the giveaway there. John, if people want to follow you, learn more about you, how can they do that?
Well, I would come back anytime, all the time, whenever you want. Just let me know. I love you guys. I love this platform, and I had so much fun tonight. I hope I didn't talk too much or hog the stage. I was really excited.
Oh,
no,
you were
great, John.
Not at all. You were fantastic.
Wonderful. So follow me on Twitter. It's John_Capobianco. You can go to automateyournetwork.ca. I even renewed my cert this month. So that's a secure page you can reach to visit me there. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, you can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I'm very open and happy to help. I don't do any private mentoring or anything of that nature, but I'm happy to help you with code or get started or answer questions. If you want my book and can't afford it, reach out to me. And I had such a great time, guys. Anytime, absolutely open line. Just let me know. I'll be there. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you, John.
Awesome. We're going to hit you up with a lot of ideas for content we can do, either another podcast, YouTube video. We want to do more with you.
Awesome. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
So thank you, John. Thank you to all of our Patreons for hanging out with us tonight. If you're interested in joining our Patreon program, you can go to patreon.com/artofneteng. And we thank our Patreons as well as all of our listeners for their support of what we do here at the Art of Network Engineering. John, again, thank you so much for joining us. Well, we're going to do this again. I promise you and everybody listening to that. And until next time, we'll see you next week on another episode of the Art of Network Engineering. Hey, everyone, this is AJ. If you like what you heard today, then make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcatcher. Smash that bell icon to get notified of all of our future episodes. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Art of NetEng. That's Art of NETENG. You can also find us on the web at artofnetworkengineering.com, where we post all of our show notes. You can read blog articles from the co-hosts and guests, and also a lot more news and info from the networking world. Thanks for listening.